All right. Let's start by quieting our minds. Allow your breath to settle in a comfortable pattern. Breathe in and out, gently and quietly, in your own comfortable pace. Direct your attention towards the empty receptive expanse that is your mind. When thoughts pop up out of nowhere, watch them move past, like clouds in the sky, leaving your mind receptive and ready to receive the Holy Spirit's inspiration. Peace to our mind, let all our thoughts be still. Now let's focus on our presence together here in this space. We've come here in the name of love, in the name of peace, in the name of joy, in the name of Jesus, who promised that when two or more are gathered in his name, he will be there with them. And so we trust that love is here, that peace is here, that joy is here among us. Let us open this session with a prayer from lesson 329. Father, we thought we had wandered from your will, defied it, broke its laws, and interposed a second will more powerful than yours. Yet, what we are in truth is but your will, extended and extending. This we are, and this will never change. As you are one, so we are one with you. And this we chose in our creation, where our will became forever one with yours. That choice was made for all eternity. It cannot change and be in opposition to itself. Father, our will is yours, and we are safe, untroubled and serene, in endless joy, because it is your will that it be so. Today we will accept our union with each other and our source. We have no will apart from his, and all of us are one, because his will is shared by all of us. Through it, we recognize that we are one. Through it, we find our way at last to God. Amen. Now gently direct your attention back to the group and open your eyes. Thank you. Today we will be looking at lessons 15 through 21. Is there any particular lesson that any of you would like to focus on? And then we'll start with that just to make sure that we get to it.
Yes.
Go ahead, Sharon.
Yes, I would like to start with, for us to start with 15, because this was I think an important one, especially I'm looking at Ken Wapnick's book, and he was saying the phrase, the thoughts you think is extremely important. And I would just like to talk about that a little bit.
Would you like to read the whole thing or parts of it?
Yes, I would love to.
Go ahead.
The thoughts you think is extremely important. We actually think we are thinking.
So sorry, Sharon, where are you reading now? I've got lesson 15.
Sorry, I'm reading from Ken's book.
From Ken's book. Let's have a look at lesson 15 first.
Yes.
Can you read parts of that, please? The whole thing or parts of it?
Yes. Okay.
It's in share screen.
Okay. It is because the thoughts you think appear as images that you do not recognize them as nothing. You think them, and so you think you see them. This is how your seeing was made. This is the function you have given your body's eyes. It is not seeing. It is image making. It takes the place of seeing, replacing vision with illusion. This introductory idea to the process of image making that you call seeing will not have much meaning for you. You will begin to understand it when you have seen little edges of light around the same familiar objects which you see now. That is the beginning of real vision. You can be certain that real vision will come quickly when this has occurred. And I'd like to stop there and just say that Ken interjects that Jesus is not talking about literally seeing edges of light around objects. He said this is originally meant for a friend of Helen and Bill's, and that he is really talking about the light of understanding or vision. And if you try to take this literally, you'll feel guilty yourself, or you'll guiltily feel yourself to be a failure when you do not see little edges of light around objects, not to mention glorifying those who claim they do.
Mm.
And that was a big aha for me.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, because I've never seen edges of light around.
It's interesting because in the Facebook group, there was a discussion when day 15 came around and this lesson was the lesson of the day. And somebody was saying, well, if that's what Ken Wapnick says, that it was actually for Helen and her friend, then why is it in the course? Why wasn't it edited out? And that made me think like, well, perhaps it applies to other people too, because Helen did see edges of light. You know, she had light episodes. And so people who do regularly see light, if it were never mentioned in the course, they might feel left out somehow. Yeah. So, you know, it applies to us in the way it applies to us, I suppose. Oh, there's Manu. Hi, Manu. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Would you like to take over facilitating?
No, Sharon, why don't you please complete at least this lesson, and then let's have the questions that are being raised. I certainly have one.
All right.
Why don't we, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I think before me, there were people. So I think Maggie might be ahead of me in terms of, Sharon, did you have anything more to add? Because that's super relevant sharing from a Ken standpoint.
Sharon appears to be frozen.
Yeah, Sharon, hopefully she's not having a light episode.
An ice episode.
Yeah. I was going to say, I can just say the thing I was going to say real quick. Maybe she might be able to refresh at some point, but I was only going to say that Gary talks about this in his books. I'm not sure which one, or if it's more than one. I can never remember which ones are which, but Artin and Persa talked to Gary Renard about the light episodes and how not everybody experiences that, and it doesn't mean anything one way or the other about how well you're doing things or anything like that. And so that I think Ken's warning was just to make sure that people don't use it to beat themselves up, like he said, but that some people do experience a variety of different types of light episodes, which is why it's in quotations like that. It can look like different things for different people, is my understanding. And I do have experience of light episodes and variety of them, but I don't think it makes me special. And I think that that was just the warning, was not to make it special one way or the other.
Yeah. Thank you, Maggie. So like I said, the Sharon sharing from a Ken standpoint was very important, as well as what you just said, Maggie. So early on, I was definitely confused by this. And, I thought about light episodes and the fact that I wasn't experiencing any of them either. And at the same time, I was of the conviction that being that these are all perceptions, they don't really mean anything at the end of the day, just like we are all surmising right now, and are no reflection on anybody's status, if was even if that was even important. So, but I would, given Ken's explanation, I would disagree with him actually, because at the same time, because just like Maggie mentioned, if you go to the next paragraph, and I'll share my screen here. So if you can see my screen, yeah, first of all, it talks about these light episodes, which makes it in my book very clear that we are talking about a physical phenomenon. And it talks about the different forms it can take. Says, do not be afraid of them. They will not persist, and they merely symbolize true perception. And so if you look at it from, so I actually think it may have been a good idea to remove it from the text. But anyway, it's obviously was never done and still here. So I think it's a very important call out for all of us, so that I think these do happen and at the same time mean nothing in the long run for most of us. So any other, so I think Ardit, yes, please go ahead. You had your hand raised.
Yeah, but I think between Johanna and you, pretty much expressed what I was thinking. I guess I didn't discount it because I don't discount anything, since I don't know what anything's for anyway. And I figured that there have been people that I've read, not necessarily involved in the course, but had episodes very similar to this, and they weren't, saying that they had this wonderful experience above everyone else. They were just relating their experience, and far from be it for me to discount it. So I guess I would go with you in saying that it's important if it's important, and ultimately not so much, because when we're bathed in light, it doesn't matter. Maybe a little thought before I stop with this is that my biblical knowledge is not good, but what I do know is I remember, and maybe someone knows directly, that Jesus at some point, it seems to me, he looked out into light. I'm going to sound like I'm babbling, probably, and if I've got that wrong, then I've got it wrong. But that's kind of where I had that from always, that if he could see that light around others, then that might be a possibility for us, and then maybe that's why that remained in the course. Anyway, okay, thank you. That's it.
Yeah, thank you, Ardit. I'll just want to make a quick comment. And Sharon, welcome back. I know we lost you, so you made it back technically.
I'm on my phone.
Okay, no worries. We see you. And so we're still on lesson 15, still talking about the light episodes and what they may or may not mean. And I'll just share one more quick thing, which is when I was growing up in India and reading all the Indian Hindu scriptures and for that matter, many others, I was hobbled. I was disadvantaged because I thought that these light episodes were necessary for spiritual development. In the whole Hindu tradition, there are a million different stories about how God and the divine appears in a flash of light. And, and then you have, and there's a few famous books on the activation of the Kundalini and things, which also which I later came to understand that they activate certain chemicals in our body, just like some drugs do. They activate certain chemicals in our body and in the pineal gland, which allow for these episodes to occur if they do happen to some people. But again, I just wanted to share that quickly. And it kept me for a long time trying to get to that state. I wanted to get to that state. And therefore, when I finally understood things as I now do, I realized that, yeah, none of that is important. And it's a whole different thing. And the course talks very clearly about what we're really shooting for is that peace and calm and the quiet nothing, which is also everything. So, Maggie?
Thank you for sharing that, Manu. And I'd raised my hand before you shared it, but maybe kind of like a counter example to it. Like, I see how it could cause someone to be trying to strive for something that isn't necessary. But on the other hand, I guess maybe, right? Like, I think Johanna kind of alluded to this. I'm glad it is there, because I think for some people, they are experiencing things like that. And so it can be helpful. For me, it's helpful that it's there. But what I was going to say too is just that, like Manu, you mentioned that ultimately it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it doesn't mean anything, because like nothing means anything ultimately. But that if anybody else is experiencing anything like this, sometimes temporarily, right, these meaningless things can be very meaningful for us individually, just in terms of our own practice. And I really think about like that individualized curriculum for everyone all the time, about how we're all on our own little curriculum, and there's certain things that I might experience in my practice that are really meaningful to me and help me know that I'm on track, or however you want to say that, right? But someone else maybe not have those experiences at all, but they have some other way of sensing that they're connected with spirit and sensing that they are on the right track. So I know for me, the light episodes are quite significant in my experience, with the understanding that ultimately they aren't at all, but temporarily, right? We can follow some of these things if they are there for us.
Yes. I remember quite clearly the episode you had in college when you had taken a certain substance or something. Are you referring to that, or?
No, I wouldn't even call that a light episode. That was something very different. But
Okay.
but no, for me, I have much like it's described in some moments, edges of light around things. Sometimes it feels like there's light coming from behind everything, and I can sense that it's a very thin veil between me and the light. And sometimes there's I might be reading something and I might see a little light over here, and it clues me to go look at something over there. So I have a variety of different things that I think of as light episodes, but not my Selvi experience.
Okay, thank you so much. Johanna?
Thank you for sharing that, Maggie. That sheds yet another light on the subject. What came to mind all of a sudden is that after reading Helen's biography, I remember that she was really anxious not to come across as someone who has gone nuts with her psychic experiences. And perhaps this paragraph is there to reassure her that she's not going crazy, that she's not some kooky psychic, but that she thought of herself as a solid scientist. And so that came to mind, that it's there to reassure her and anyone who has these episodes that it's just part of the process and don't worry about it. The other thing I wanted to mention is that all of a sudden I realized that we talked about the light episodes as well last week, and maybe the indication of the lessons isn't correct. I should have mentioned the 7 next lessons, right, from 2022 to 28, but we didn't get to read all the lessons last week. So my suggestion would be to go to perhaps lesson 18. I think that we read 70. I can't remember exactly. If anyone else remembers exactly, then.
Yeah, Sharon, thanks for starting us on lesson 15. So that is actually lesson 15.
I thought we were supposed to be doing lesson 15 to
21.
Yeah, but didn't we do that last week?
No, I don't think so, because I remember mentioning that we're going to come up on the neutral lessons.
Okay, then I'm mistaken, because I seem to remember that we talked about edges of light.
It's not a mistake, Johanna. You experienced another slice of time. And
Yeah.
so it actually happened.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
We're just going to review it mentally again.
Yep.
It's all good. It's all good.
It is. It is.
Okay, so Sharon, is it okay if I continue with the lessons? Thanks.
Oh,
Thanks for
yes. Yes.
all right. So there's a theme developing here, and let me before I make your head spin, I'm going to stop sharing so that as I read through the document in a quick succession. So we started with the lesson, My Thoughts Are Images, and the next lesson, which we'll get to shortly, is I Have No Neutral Thoughts. The one after that is I See No Neutral Things. Lesson 18 is, then it develops the idea further. I'm not alone in experiencing the effects of my seeing. And then the next one, I'm not alone in experiencing the effects of my thoughts. So seeing and thoughts are, integrated here. The fact that we are not having anything, we are not seeing them neutrally or experiencing them neutrally is introduced. And the effect of our thoughts is more than on us is also now introduced. And then finally, once we start to grapple with that, lesson 20 says, I am determined to see. And lesson 21 is, I'm determined to see things differently. So it's really starting to take us through this lesson plan very thoughtfully and appropriately, so that, every time we go through this, we can learn something quite amazing. So I just wanted to preface our exploration in that fashion. So lesson 16, I'm going to just read through a few of these, and if anyone has thoughts and comments or would like to read any aspect or any part of this lesson, please let us know. So I have no neutral thoughts. Everything you see is the result of your thoughts. There is no exception to this fact. This is paragraph 1, lesson 16. It goes on to say that thoughts, big or small, the size doesn't matter. Number 2, and we've discussed this before, there is no more self-contradictory concept than that of quote unquote idle thoughts, right? And what gives rise to the perception of a whole world can hardly be called idle. Every thought you have contributes to truth or illusion. It either extends the truth or multiplies illusions. You can indeed multiply nothing, but you will not extend it by doing so. So I'm going to stop there. Actually, let me also, in paragraph 3, it says, every thought you have brings either peace or war, love or fear. And we know that's the essential dichotomy, even though it's a course in oneness, the essential dichotomy made is between love and fear. Those are the two things that are either absolutely real or not real at all. So thoughts, commentary on this amazing lesson? Yes, Peter, please go ahead.
So this workbook lesson in particular for me, it's that very first sentence, dispelling the belief that your thoughts have no effect, and to begin to understand that every thought has an effect, as you pointed out. I think for me, my ego wants me to believe that I don't have an effect, that my thoughts don't have any effect, which sets up the whole victim, the role of the victim and all of that. And then in the next, in 18 and 19, he's talking about, the joint, our minds are joined. And that's another thing that my ego says is not true. My mind is separate from your mind and from her mind. And so we can have no effect on each other. So, this is true reversal of the thinking of the world, thought reversal. And I still grapple with this. The other thing is there's no hierarchy of thoughts. He says, thoughts are not big or little, weak or powerful. They're merely true or false. So even the smallest negative thought is a thought of fear. And it's the same as, a huge thought of fear in that it moves me away from the truth. So in a sense, it's helpful. On the other hand, it's like, oh my God, so now, I got to think of every little thing that I'm thinking. Am I moving closer towards fear or love, war or peace? But that's part of taking responsibility for my experience, because I don't want to take responsibility for my experience. I want to blame everybody else for how I feel, what I'm saying or doing, not doing. And the course right here, this lesson is telling me, no, it's all my thoughts, and to take responsibility for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And yeah, Susan, I saw you move to raise your hand. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So Peter, I love that you've spent, I greatly respect that you guys are so much more familiar with this, and I am just starting it appropriately from the beginning. But I want to say that for my mind to wrap around this, and it's really exciting and scary and upsetting and fun and anxiety. Oh, it's a whole bunch of things, right? So to survive it, to make it doable for me, I somewhere read, and it stuck with me, everything is either an act of love or a call for love. And that simplification was like, okay, there's a fork. Is it an act of love or a call for love? Whether it's my act or someone else's act, whether it's me calling for needing love or somebody else's behavior that's calling for love. And because otherwise it was too huge. It simplifies things when there's no hierarchy of problem or solution. It just is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So again, from
Yes.
somebody who's just like, this is my first time doing these lessons. But that helped me a lot. I don't know, from your experience, what do you say to that?
Susan, I'll let others also chime in here. Peter, you were going to say something.
Well, I was just going to say very quickly it seems to me that you have a good grasp of the issue. And yes, all acts are an expression of love or a call for love. And it goes beyond that. It's to my thinking. It's like I don't even have to act to have an effect on my experience. So I don't have to leave my living room to have that opportunity to choose love or fear, to express love or call for love. And the other thing I'll just say is, the course is very clear that the world that I see is an outside picture of an inner condition, and so getting a hold of that inner condition by being aware of the thoughts that I'm thinking, are they moving me closer to war or closer to peace, and taking responsibility for that. That's the hardest part for me, is to take responsibility for my thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. So I'm going to encourage you, great start, and keep going in that direction, and you'll soon be teaching all of us how to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, Susan's already teaching us, because I'll just make a quick comment and then Ardith and Derek can speak. Yeah, because you made it simple for us. And so, yeah, it's literally, I think it's an amazing way to think about the whole course. It's either about love, or it's about a call to love, or which might otherwise be called fear. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you. Ardith?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Simplify. Course is simple but not easy. I just hang on to what Peter said, and you can take this, Susan. Hopefully you can use this. That in the introduction to the workbook, The first line says a theoretical foundation such as the text provides is necessary as a framework to make the exercises in this workbook meaningful. And I know a lot of people look at that and they say, oh, I can't go through that. That's why they dive into the workbook lessons first. But there's truth in that. And I think to bear out what Peter was saying, chapter 21 in the text, if anybody wants to review it and revisit it, Reason and Perception, specifically section 2, it's on page 448 of the Blue Book. And it does say just that small paragraph, but I would say read the whole section because it's really very enlightening. Read it kind of meditatively, at least I did, and I got a lot from it. And so it does say in this section, I am, and it's got it in bold, responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience, and I decide upon the goal I would achieve. And everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for and receive as I have asked. And it has elements of sight and elements of perception throughout this section. So hopefully it would be more helpful than confusing. But anyway, I know I balked at that little paragraph when I first read it, but not now. So if it will be of help, I hope it will be. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ardith. That is one of the more difficult paragraphs to read and ingest. Absolutely.
Yes.
It squarely puts the responsibility that Peter is talking about on us without any possibility of escape.
I know.
Derek?
Yeah, I love the way Susan brought that simplification, and I apologize in advance that I feel like I might be doing the opposite with this question. And perhaps you guys can help me. But what I was thinking is, I have no neutral thoughts and I see no neutral things because my thoughts about those things are not neutral. And I was just thinking about my steering wheel. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but I was looking at my steering wheel here. And to me, like, without going into intellectual coarse think or anything, just me, I mean, like, that thing is real. It hits my hand. It's, I just relate to this and sort of implicitly think about this thing is real, and it affects me in all sorts of different ways within the dream here. And I was thinking about that somewhere in one of the lessons. It says that something to the effect that me believing that all this is real is actually an attack on God. And so I was just curious to hear anybody's thoughts. It just seems so counterintuitive, like me believing that the steering wheel, I see it, it's real, there it is, and I just leave it at that. It seems so simple and so neutral and so non-threat, non-detrimental. But the Course says that whole process that I just did without even thinking about it is an attack on God, which is a huge statement. So I'm just, Peter, Manu, help.
Yeah, we can all attempt to help us each, including ourselves, understand that. So, when we see the steering wheel as real, it means that we are seeing our body as real, because the body, without our body, the steering wheel wouldn't be a thing for us to grapple with. And the whole idea behind these lessons is to help us understand that we have created our own world. And because we have created our own world in which this body and steering wheel exist, it's an attack on God, because it's an attack against the real world. But that does not mean, and maybe we can discuss this another time or later on, it does not mean that the steering wheel is evil or, of no value, and the body is evil and is of no value, because that's where the Course goes eventually, and soon actually, where, it talks about, so if my world isn't real and God's world is real, what does that mean in practice? And so we can maybe go there next. But thank you. It's an amazing question.
That was really helpful.
That was great. Thank you, Manu. The only thing I would add is, Derek, you're getting ahead of yourself. Lesson 22, which we're going to do next week, what I see as a form of vengeance. This, today's idea accurately describes the way anyone who holds attack thoughts in his mind must see the world. So that includes everything in it. And the Course does say that the world was made as an attack on God. I think I'm at war with God. The only purpose, Course says is very clearly, I forget exactly where it is, the only purpose of the world is to make guilt real.
Wow.
And as far as the ego is concerned, and then the Holy Spirit said the only purpose of the world is to forgive the world. That's why my function is forgiveness as the light of the world. So it's an all or nothing kind of thing. I can't see, there's no neutrality. I can't be a little bit guilty, and I can't see you as a little bit innocent and maintain this illusion. Good question, though.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
Thank you. Yes, very helpful, Peter. Maggie?
I wanted to say something, but I'm also open to any correction or further thoughts if anyone thinks that they're appropriate. I think I just felt like it was important to say that we think that we are attacking God, and so like that God can't actually be attacked. But Derek, when you said like me believing in the steering wheel is an attack on God, we believe that believing in the steering wheel is an attack on God. I think like the ego, that was the ego's first suggestion upon seeing what we'd done. The ego was like, oh no, you attacked God, right? And we were like, oh no, we attacked God. It was like, yeah, now come with me. Come with me. We got to go here. We got to go do this now. So I don't know if that's if that makes sense to others or if that's helpful at all. But to me, it felt important because Derek, you said it's a strong claim. If I think that I literally just attacked God just by thinking the steering wheel was real, I think, no, you didn't really, right? But the problem is that we think we're attacking God by engaging with the world that we think we created.
That's helpful. Helpful nuance. Thank you.
So no guilt. You didn't attack him.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Susan, would you like to say something?
I sure would. So to everybody, but Derek in particular, I'm taking the long view here and allowing myself to not understand all of it. And that's okay. Like, I really had a hard time where I don't know if it was in the text or in the lessons, where I read somewhere about murdering God or something. And I have to say, honestly, I am just allowing myself to proceed with what makes sense and suspending judgment on the rest, because I'm trusting by day 365, I might have a bigger, broader understanding of what all of it means. So for me, the simplifying down is just a way for me to sort through the mind-bending aspect of flipping my brain upside down or right side up, through the process of the lessons. But I'm not 100% all in on everything because I don't totally understand everything that I'm reading. And instead of slamming the door and saying, oh, that's malarkey, I'm instead saying, I have places in my reading where I have big question marks. And one of them is the same place that you have your question marks. And I'm trusting that things will unfold.
Yep, absolutely. That's another beautiful simplification in all its positive sense, because the Course says it, that only from the stance of you not knowing anything can you learn anything. And so just having that not knowingness be the guide is our best step forward.
Can I respond just one little thing to Susan? It makes me laugh that when I've got 2 copies of the Course, the first one from the first 15 years, the second copy from the last 5 years. but that first copy, I don't have question marks in that thing. I'm like scratching things out and writing like essays of like, this makes no sense. I mean, I was arguing with it, I'd say 30–40% of the time, just all over those 669 pages, because I read the text. So I love your reminder, and I really need it. So thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Ardith, you're next.
Yeah, first of all, I got to apologize to Susan and everybody else to bring up one of the most difficult paragraphs to ever absorb. I didn't mean, I'm just saying that when you reach that and you have the moment, we all have. So, but what I'd like to do also is just to say that you might get a little bit of a help. I'm an ambassador for the clarification of terms, which comes after the manual for teachers, especially the introduction page. It's only 8 pages, but I would suggest maybe, in whenever you feel so led, to open it up and just kind of glance through it. It might help give you kind of an overview, and it's a lot nicer than that paragraph that I read. And so, anyway, I hope that helps a little bit.
Yes, if there was ever an ambassador for the clarification of terms, it is Ardith.
Sorry.
Why be sorry? That's
oh no, that's it. That's a habitual thing. I take it back. Didn't say it.
yeah,
Didn't say it.
words matter. So please
Yes,
do
they
take that back. And
I did.
Yes, thank you. And
Thank you.
yeah, many times have you encouraged me to look at the clarification of terms, and I'm going to do it one more time thanks to this reminder.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Okay. So Derek, you still have your hand raised, just FYI from previously. And Ardith can also lower her hand when you can.
Oh, yes, thank you. Sorry.
And let's go back to the lessons and glance through a couple more at least. So lesson 17. Now, these are all longer lessons. They start with the shorter practice suggestions. And Susan, if this is the first time you're doing them, please try your best to do all the practice sessions, even if they don't seem to make sense as the lessons suggest initially. And so lesson 17, I see no neutral things. May I have a volunteer to read this first paragraph, which I have italicized? Andrew? Keith, you can go to the next one when we get there.
Yes, I see no neutral things. This idea is another step in the direction of identifying cause and effect as it really operates in the world. You see no neutral things because you have no neutral thoughts. It is always the thought that comes first, despite the temptation to believe that it is the other way around. This is not the way the world thinks, but you must learn that it is the way you think. If it were not so, perception would have no cause and would itself be the cause of reality. In view of its highly variable nature, this is hardly likely. I do have a comment here about this is not the way the world thinks. I'm a little confused, or maybe not, that's not the right word, but there are 8 billion people in the world now. All minds are connected. So there's got to be a collective mind, and somehow we all have a little influence on the other. So the world thinks one way, and we're trying to change pretty much the way the world thinks. And I was actually struggling a little bit more, but we are connected, and I could prove it, because I was going to say that prayer today, bring up that prayer. I am responsible for all I see. I choose the feelings I experience and decide upon the goal I would achieve. And artists said the same thing. So there is some sort of connection, but it just, the collective mind and And what that means is a little bit strange to me, and how we do influence 8 billion people. And is that part of the Christ mind? Is it a small fraction or a larger fraction of the Christ mind? Because, the universe is vast compared to the planet Earth. But it's something that I think about a lot, the collective mind and the individual mind and the Holy Spirit.
Thank you, Andrew. We have Johanna and then Peter. There was a thumbs up from Derek on that statement and question, Andrew. And so Johanna and Peter will help us understand this. Johanna?
I hope so. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Andrew. What came to mind is, you said it already, a collective mind. If you think of our minds are connected, you start to go into numbers, and that's a trick of the ego. Numbers is a trick of the ego, and size is a trick of the ego. So that will put you on the wrong track. So think of one mind, and when I think of one mind and one spirit, I get the analogy of the sun. Are you familiar with the emoji of the sun with sunglasses on? There's an emoji with the sun that has sunglasses on. Well, the sun, in this analogy, the sun is spirit or mind. And one of those dark glasses is a piece of that sphere that thinks it's separate and not part of it all. And so there's 8 billion of those glasses on that sphere. But if you think of the sun, which is huge, if there are 8 billion sunglasses on the sun, that's really nothing. That just goes to prove that numbers are just, they deceive. Anyway, when one sunglass realizes that it is mistaken and it turns around, that dark glass dissolves. And the sun that was shining all the time was perfect already, but it intensifies, the light intensifies. And so, and that will happen with all those 8 billion sunglasses. And, whatever other billions will roam the earth after us, until the light is so intensified and that there is no more misunderstanding. That's the way I think about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Peter?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to actually answer a question or even make a contribution here, but two things come to mind. Number one, there is only one mind. That's the mind of God. He does say, you are a thought in the mind of God. Not really sure what that means. And he also makes a distinction between our ego thoughts and our true thoughts. Our true thoughts are the thoughts that we think with God. And so it gets a little confusing. I have no neutral thoughts. I see no neutral things. How do I make that distinction between what are true thoughts of God versus my ego's thoughts? And then this idea that minds are joined, it's not a collective mind. There's only one mind. There's no separation. And that's what's very difficult to get our mind around, pun intended, as these egos scurrying around in the illusion. So I hope that helps or hurts, but that's what I got.
Thank you, Peter. I'll add a few things based on what you just reminded me of and Andrew's question. Andrew, please correct my interpretation of your question. I think what you said was there appears to be a collective world mind, and then there's, of course, Andrew knows and we know that there is, the one mind of God. So I'll just go ahead and then you clarify for us if necessary. So Gary Renard and many other teachers talk about ego as, with a capital E as well as a small e. So oftentimes the egoic mind is referred to as a collective. So and this is my interpretation, there appears to be a large ego mind that is the cause of this world and other perceptions. And that's where we are collectively together even though it's still part of the larger one mind, collectively we are in that illusory experience together. And so we are affecting that egoic mind at the same time as we might be affecting in some ways the large one mind of God. There's a few more things there, but I'll just stop for you to react and others to contribute further.
That sort of agrees with what I was sort of leaning towards, because there are probably other planets with people on them and stuff, but it's just it's a much bigger picture than what we could possibly conceive. The world mind is a bigger ego. That sort of makes sense to me now. And because when we shut the computer off, we don't all disappear except for me or you, or everybody's still here in the world. So we're just part of a bigger mind. It just, that's all.
Thank you. Maggie, you can go next. Just a quick comment. There are other cosmologies, other sources of quote unquote truth or revelations that start to give a different interpretation of how to look at this. And I think some of those might, because A Course in Miracle is not really talking about cosmology. It's really only talking about truth. And it's a teaching of non-duality to get us to the truth as soon as we possibly can, which is its amazing strength. But some other cosmologies do talk about what this might mean in the grand scheme of things. What are the different planets? Where are they all going? And what might it mean? So, Maggie?
Yeah, I don't know if this is helpful, kind of much like a couple of you have said now, but it's coming into my mind as I'm listening to the conversation. So I will say it if it is helpful. But I think about dreaming at night and, like as a therapist, we talk often to people about how all the people in your dreams are just yourself, right? So I have a dream at night that, let's say I have a dream that my brother does something terrible to me, and I interact with a billion different people in my dream, and they have a billion different thoughts and experiences. And then I wake up and I realize there wasn't anyone else at all, and it was all just me. So I like to think about how there's a part of the mind of God that is having a dream. And it seems that there's 8 billion different versions, and they're interacting and they're doing things to each other. But when that part of the mind of God wakes up, it's going to recognize there was only one. There wasn't all of those others. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Thank you. Very helpful.
It is. So we're all a part of a part. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. If you have to think about it in that fashion, and Johanna was saying maybe we shouldn't go there in terms of counting stuff, but how can we not in this point, in this perspective?
Thank you.
Yes. That's wonderful. Thank you. I'm just going to scan through the other lessons because we literally have time to maybe just do that and see. So, as I said previously, this is developing a certain way of thinking in terms of how we have no neutral thoughts, and we see no neutral things, how our thinking affects others and the world, and the fact that we don't experience the effects of our thoughts alone either. So we'll keep going from there. And then it brings us to a choice, a determination that we may make. And so maybe we'll stop here with lesson 20, and lesson 21 is, lesson 20 is, sorry, I'm determined to see. And lesson 21 is, I'm determined to see things differently. So sorry for the back and forth here. Keith, if you will, please read us this paragraph and we can end there right after that.
Sure. Your decision to see is all that vision requires. What you want is yours. Do not mistake the little effort that is asked of you for an indication that our goal is of little worth. Can the salvation of the world be a trivial purpose? And can the world be saved if you are not? God has one Son, and he is the resurrection and the life. His will is done because all power is given him in heaven and on earth. In your determination to see is vision given you.
Thank you, Keith. That's beautiful. Just before you speak, Peter, I think this is starting to bring things together for me. As in, if I were to repeat what you said, Andrew, we are parts of a part, and whether that's just a single dream occurring, which is a beautiful way to think of it, or not, it seems we are a part of that one sonship, and each of us, if you start counting them, need to wake up for that one son to be whole again. Peter?
Yeah, I just wanted to share very quickly that I had a holy instant with this week with this lesson. It turns out it was just an instant, and it turns out I've taken it back. But in that instant, I was able to see somebody differently. I had a moment of somebody who I thought was doing something to me against my will, and somebody who was an enemy or adversary, whatever you want to call it. And I had a moment where it was just, oh, this person is not an enemy. This person is actually a friend who's playing a role in my life that I've actually asked them to play at some level. And I just felt this sense of peace and love in the situation. Now I've since taken it back, and I still am seeing this person the old way, but I did have that moment, and it was like, it was a literal seeing them differently in my mind, and having a moment of peace that came from that. And I was determined. I was really determined to see this person differently. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. Keith?
My question is a housekeeping question, so if you want to leave it till later, that's fine.
Oh, go ahead and ask, please.
I apologize for arriving late. Maybe you discussed this before I joined, but Peter was thinking about starting a class on Fridays, and I'm wondering if that was discussed or.
Keith, yeah,
Okay.
just to let you know, I'll update you and everybody else, but it looks like I'm going to do it on Thursdays.
Let's talk about this after we've stopped recording.
Okay, thank you. So before we stop the recording, let's maybe close our eyes, go back to that moment of peace, that holy instant that Peter was just referring to. A holy instant, among other things, is this moment of peace and togetherness in our oneness, as we just dwell in this moment as our bodies, as our perceptions, as everything plus more. We just experience this quietness and this sense of just being. This beingness is what we are talking about and experiencing. This beingness is also that one Christ mind that connects us into the one mind we were referring to. Thank you. Okay, once the recording is done, then we can maybe talk about that. Is it done, Johanna?